They don't want you to know this. For centuries, a powerful secret has been hidden from the world, a secret so immense it could reshape reality itself. The tablets of fate are said to hold the ultimate power, the ability to control the destiny of nations, rulers, and even the fabric of time. But here's the shocking part. Evidence suggests they never disappeared. In fact, they may still be in the hands of the elite, manipulating every major event in history. What if your choices, your future, your very existence were already written? Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to learn might just shatter everything you thought you knew. The tablets of fate appear in ancient Mesopotamian texts, where they were said to be held by the gods, Enlil, Marduk, and others who ruled existence itself. These were not just myths. Ancient carvings describe them as physical objects, detailing laws of reality that could be rewritten at will. Let's learn more about the tablets of fate. The Tablet of Destinies was created by Tiamat. Tiamat was the first goddess in existence who created all of the other Mesopotamian gods for her son Lugal. Lugal was the Mesopotamian god of madness before he went to war with the younger gods who had killed her husband Apsu. By giving him the power to change fate, Tiamat sought to ensure Lugal's victory over the other gods. However, Lugal was defeated and Tiamat was slain by Marduk. After Lugal's defeat, the tablet falls into human hands. At first, the tablet merely allows those who can read the language to read their fates. However, the tablet becomes damaged over time, which allows the holder to alter their destiny. Over the millennia, the tablet changed hands a number of times, being used by people like Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, Saladin, and Mehmet to change fate. Aware of the tablet's power, it is sought by Ishtar, goddess of love and war, queen of heaven. Before her death at the hands of Nergal, was a Mesopotamian god worshipped through all periods of Mesopotamian history, from early dynastic to Neo-Babylonian times, with a few attestations indicating that his cult survived into the period of Achaemenid domination. He was primarily associated with war, death, and disease, and has been described as the god of inflicted death. For centuries, secret societies have fought to find and control them. Pharaohs, emperors, popes, and presidents. Were they merely puppets, following a script written long before their birth? Think this is just ancient mythology? Think again. Babylonian accounts. The Enuma Elish, Babylonian creation myth, describes Marduk stealing the tablets from Tiamat, the goddess of chaos. The Enuma Elish, also known as the Seven Tablets of Creation, is the Babylonian creation myth, whose title is derived from the opening lines of the piece, "When on High." The myth tells the story of the great god Marduk's. Marduk was the patron god of Babylon who presided over justice, compassion, healing, regeneration, magic, and fairness. Although he is also sometimes referenced as a storm god and agricultural deity, victory over the forces of chaos and his establishment of order at the creation of the world. All of the tablets containing the myth, also known as Enuma Elish, found at Ashur-Kish, Ashurbanipal's library at Nineveh, Sultantepe, and other excavated sites, date to circa 1200 BCE. Their colophons, however, indicate that these are all copies of a much older version of the myth dating from long before the reign of Hammurabi of Babylon, 1792 to 1750 BCE, the king who elevated the god Marduk to patron deity of Babylon. The poem in its present form, with Marduk as champion, is thought to be a revision of an even older Sumerian work. As Marduk, the champion of the young gods in their war against Tiamat, Tiamat is the Mesopotamian goddess associated with primordial chaos, and the salt sea best known from the Babylonian epic Enuma Elish is of Babylonian origin. The Sumerian Ea Enki, or Enlil, is thought to have played the major role in the original version of the story. The copy found at Ashur has the god Asur in the main role, as was the custom of the cities of Mesopotamia. The god of each city was always considered the best and most powerful. Marduk, the god of Babylon, only figures as prominently as he does in the story because most of the copies found are from Babylonian scribes. Even so, Ea does still play an important part in the Babylonian version of the Enuma Elish by creating human beings. The story, one of the oldest in the world, concerns the birth of the gods and the creation of the universe and human beings. In the beginning, there was only undifferentiated water swirling in chaos. Out of this swirl, the waters divided into sweet, fresh water, known as the god Apsu, and salty, bitter water, the goddess Tiamat. Once differentiated, the union of these two entities gave birth to the younger gods. These young gods, however, were extremely loud, troubling the sleep of Apsu at night and distracting him from his work by day. Upon the advice of his vizier, Mumu, Apsu decides to kill the younger gods. Tiamat, hearing of their plan, warns her eldest son, Enki, sometimes Ea, and he puts Apsu to sleep and kills him. From Apsu's remains, Enki creates his home. Ea, Enki, and the younger gods fight against Tiamat futilely until from among them emerges the champion Marduk, who swears he will defeat Tiamat. Marduk defeats Kingu and takes Tiamat's life by shooting her with an arrow, which splits her in two. From her eyes flow the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Out of Tiamat's corpse, Marduk creates the heavens and the earth. He appoints gods to various duties and binds Tiamat's 11 creatures to his feet as trophies, to much adulation from the other gods, before setting their images in his new home. He also takes the tablets of destiny from Kingu, thus legitimizing his reign. After the gods have finished praising him for his great victory and the art of his creation, Marduk consults with the god Ea, the god of wisdom, and decides to create human beings from the remains of whichever of the gods encouraged Tiamat to make war. Kingu is charged as guilty and killed, and from his blood Ea creates Lulu, the first man, to be a helper to the gods in their eternal task of maintaining order and keeping chaos at bay. As the poem phrases it, Ea created mankind, on whom he imposed the service of the gods and set the gods free. Tablet 6:33-34. Following this, Marduk arranged the organization of the netherworld and distributed the gods to their appointed stations. The poem ends in Tablet 7 with long praise of Marduk for his accomplishments. Marduk gained prominence in Babylon during the reign of Hammurabi and quickly surpassed the former patron deity Inanna Ishtar in popularity. During Hammurabi's reign, in fact, a number of previously popular female deities were replaced by male gods. The Enuma Elish, praising Marduk as the most powerful of all the gods, therefore became increasingly popular as the god himself rose in prominence and his city of Babylon grew in power. The Enuma Elish was read and recited widely throughout Mesopotamia, but was especially important at the New Year festival in Babylon. During this festival, the statue of Marduk would be taken from the temple and, amidst the revelers, was paraded through the streets of the city, out the gates, to vacation in a small house built for this purpose. The Enuma Elish, especially, it is thought, the praise from Tablet 7 would be sung or chanted during this procession. The tale begins before creation, when only the primordial entities Apsu and Tiamat existed, co-mingled together. There were no other things or gods, nor had any destinies been foretold. Then, from the mixture of Apsu and Tiamat, two gods issued, Lamu and Lahamu. Next, Anshar and Kishar were created. From Anshar came firstly the god Anu, and from Anu came Nudimud, also known as Ea. The commotion of these new gods disturbed and disgusted Apsu, and Apsu could not calm them. Apsu called Mumu to speak with Tiamat, and he proposed to destroy the new gods, but Tiamat was reluctant to destroy what they had made. Mumu advised Apsu to destroy them, and he embraced Mumu. The new gods heard of this and were worried. Ea, however, crafted a spell to lull Apsu to sleep. Mummu sought to wake Apsu but could not. Ea took Apsu's halo and wore it himself, slew Apsu, and chained Mummu. Apsu became the dwelling place of Ea, together with his wife Damkina. Within the heart of Apsu, Ea and Damkina created Marduk. The splendor of Marduk exceeded Ea and the other gods, and Ea called him "my son the sun." Anu created the four winds. Other gods taunted Tiamat. When your consort, Apsu, was slain, you did nothing, and complained of the wearisome wind. Tiamat then made monsters to battle the other gods, 11 chimeric creatures with weapons, with the god Kingu, chief of the war party, and her new consort. She gave Kingu the Tablet of Destinies, making his command unchallengeable. Ea heard of Tiamat's plan to fight and avenge Apsu. He spoke to his grandfather Anshar, telling that many gods had gone to Tiamat's cause, and that she had created 11 monstrous creatures fit for war, and made Kingu their leader, wielding the Tablet of Destinies. Anshar was troubled and told Anu to go to appease Tiamat, but he was too weak to face her and turned back. Anshar became more worried, thinking no god could resist Tiamat. Finally, Anshar proposed Marduk as their champion. Marduk was brought forth and asked what god he must fight, to which Anshar replied that it was not a god, but the goddess Tiamat. Marduk confidently predicted his victory, but exacted their promise to proclaim him supreme god, with authority over even Anshar. Anshar spoke to Gaga, was a Mesopotamian deity, who advised him to fetch Lamu and Lahamu and tell them of Tiamat's war plans and of Marduk's demand for overlordship if he defeats her. Lamu and Lahamu and other Igigi, heavenly gods, were distressed, but drank together, becoming drowsy and finally approving the compact with Marduk. Marduk was given a throne and sat over the other gods who honored him. Marduk was also given a scepter and vestments, as well as weapons to fight Tiamat, bow, quiver, mace, and bolts of lightning, together with the four winds. His body was aflame. Using the four winds, Marduk trapped Tiamat, adding a whirlwind, a cyclone, and Imhulu, the evil wind. Together, the seven winds stirred up Tiamat. In his war chariot drawn by four creatures, he advanced. He challenged Tiamat, stating she had unrightfully made Kingu her consort, accusing her of being the source of the trouble. Enraged, Tiamat joined Marduk in single combat. Marduk used a net, a gift from Anu, to entangle Tiamat. Tiamat attempted to swallow Marduk, but the evil wind filled her mouth. With the winds swirling within her, she became distended. Marduk then shot his arrow, hitting her heart. She was slain. The other gods attempted to flee, but Marduk captured them, broke their weapons, and netted them. Her 11 monsters were also captured and chained, whilst Kingu was imprisoned and the Tablet of Destinies taken from him. Marduk then destroyed Tiamat's head with the mace, while her blood was carried off by the north wind. Marduk then split Tiamat's remains in two. From one half he made the sky. In it he made places for Anu, Enlil, and Ea. Marduk made likenesses of the gods in the constellations and defined the days of the year from them. He created night and day, and the moon also. He created clouds and rain, and their water made the Tigris and Euphrates. He gave the Tablet of Destinies to Anu. Statues of the 11 monsters of Tiamat were made and installed at the gate of Apsu. Marduk then spoke to Ea, saying he would use his own blood to create man, and that man would serve the gods. Ea advised one of the gods be chosen as a sacrifice. The Igigi advised that Kingu be chosen. His blood was then used to create man. Marduk then divided the gods into above and below, 300 in the heavens, 600 on earth. The gods then proposed to build a throne or shrine for him. Marduk told them to construct Babylon. The gods then spent a year making bricks. They built the Asagala, temple to Marduk, to a great height, making it a place for Marduk, Ea, and Enlil. A banquet was then held, with 50 of the great gods taking seats, Anu praising Enlil's bow, and then Marduk. The first 9 names or titles of Marduk were given. The remainder of Marduk's 50 names or titles were read. Again, it is mentioned as a myth, but what if this was a real event? An ancient power struggle over knowledge too dangerous for ordinary people to possess. But what about the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus? It is not a myth, but a fact with strong written evidence. The Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus is one of the most mysterious, cryptic, and enigmatic texts. The text is actually derived from the Hermetic tradition, ancient Greek and Egyptian philosophical texts, which are attributed to the mysterious figure known as Hermes Trismegistus. The texts are a combination of the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, and the Greek god Hermes. In these texts, Hermes discusses with his disciples the true nature of the cosmos, nature, the mind, etc. These teachings can be found in the ancient texts of the Corpus Hermeticum. These texts are dated back to the 2nd and 3rd century AD, and their origin is probably Egyptian. The secret of the prima materia. The Emerald Tablet is the most famous piece of Hermetica and is said to contain the secret of the prima materia, the base of all matter and existence which is formless and beyond definition. That is the reason for the endless similes in the alchemical language. The prima materia, or the ether, is also described by the ancient alchemists as the anima mundi, or the world soul. It is the soul or oneness that connects everything and is everything. The European alchemists believed it to be the secret recipe for the creation of what is known as the philosopher's stone, a substance that is said to possess the power of transmutation of matter, such as turning lead to gold, and give immortality and rejuvenation, therefore known as the elixir of life. Over the years and upon contemplating on the words of this text, one can actually discover the many layers and hidden meanings of these words of wisdom. The text speaks volumes of ancient Taoism and different concepts of Buddhism. It was none other than Sir Isaac Newton who claimed that many of his ideas came from the Corpus Hermeticum and the Emerald Tablet, which he translated. The Emerald Tablet has been found in various ancient Arabic works in different versions. The oldest version is found as an appendix in a treatise believed to have been composed in the 9th century, known as the Book of the Secret of Creation, Kitab Sir al-Halika in Arabic. The introduction to the Book of the Secret of Creation is a narrative that explains, among other things, that all things are composed of 4 elemental principles: heat, cold, moisture, and dryness, the 4 qualities of Aristotle, and their combinations account for the relations of sympathy and antipathy between beings. Balinus, master of talismans and wonders, enters a crypt beneath the statue of Hermes Trismegistus and finds the Emerald Tablet in the hands of a seated old man along with a book. The core of the work is primarily an alchemical treatise that introduces for the first time the idea that all metals are formed from sulfur and mercury, a fundamental theory of alchemy in the Middle Ages. The text of the Emerald Tablet appears last, as an appendix. It has long been debated whether it is an extraneous piece, solely cosmogonic in nature, or if it is an integral part of the rest of the work, in which case it has an alchemical significance from the outset. Recently, it has been suggested that it is actually a text of talismanic magic, and that the confusion arises from a mistranslation from Arabic to Latin. The cosmic connection of the tablet. Every translations describe an old man. Emerald is the stone traditionally associated with Hermes, while Mercury is his metal. Mars is associated with red stones and iron, and Saturn is associated with black stones and lead. In antiquity, Greeks and Egyptians referred to various green-colored minerals, green jasper and even green granite, as emerald, and in the Middle Ages, this also applied to objects made of colored glass, such as the Emerald Tablet of the Visigothic kings, were a Germanic people united under the rule of a king and living within the Roman Empire during late antiquity. Or the Sacro Catino of Genoa, a dish seized by the Crusaders during the sack of Caesarea in 1101, which was believed to have been offered by the Queen of Sheba to Solomon and used during the Last Supper. Another version is found in an eclectic book from the 10th century, the Secretum Secretorum, Secret of Secrets, Sir al-Asrar, which presents itself as a pseudo-letter from Aristotle to Alexander the Great during the conquest of Persia. It discusses politics, morality, physiognomy, astrology, alchemy, medicine, and more. The text is also attributed to Hermes, but lacks the narrative of the tablet's discovery. The literary theme of the discovery of Hermes' hidden wisdom can be found in other Arabic texts from around the 10th century. For example, in the Book of Crates, while praying in the temple of Serapis, Crates, a Greek philosopher, has a vision of an old man, the most beautiful of men, seated in a chair. He was dressed in white garments and held a tablet on the chair, upon which was placed a book. When I asked who this old man was, I was told, "He is Hermes Trismegistus, and the book before him is one of those that contain the explanation of the secrets he has hidden from men." A similar account can be found in the Latin text known as Tabula Chemica by Senior Zadith, the Latinized name of the alchemist Ibn Umayl, in which a stone table rests on the knees of Hermes Trismegistus in the secret chamber of a pyramid. Here the table is not inscribed with text, but with hieroglyphic symbols. Another version is found in an eclectic book from the 10th century, the Secretum Secretorum, Secret of Secrets, Sir al-Asrar, which presents itself as a pseudo-letter from Aristotle to Alexander the Great during the conquest of Persia. It discusses politics, morality, physiognomy, astrology, alchemy, medicine, and more. The text is also attributed to Hermes, but lacks the narrative 42. From the late 16th century onwards, the emerald tablet is often accompanied by a symbolic figure called the Tabula Smaragdina Hermetis. This figure is surrounded by an acrostic in Latin, Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenies occultum lapidem, lit. Visit the interior of the earth, and by rectifying you will find the hidden stone whose 7 initials form the word Old French, vitriol, lit, sulfuric acid. At the top, the sun and moon pour into a cup above the symbol of Mercury. Around the mercurial cup are the 4 other planets, representing the classic association between the 7 planets and the 7 metals: Sol, gold, Luna, silver, Mercury, Quicksilver, Jupiter, tin, Mars, iron, Venus, copper, Saturn, lead. It is unclear if the image was originally drawn using colors or not. The ones which do contain them are colored as follows: gold, Sol Visita; silver, Luna Interiora; grey, Mercury Terrae; blue, Tin Rectificando; red, Iron Invenies; green, Copper; black, Lead Lapidum. In the center there is a ring and a globus cruciger, and at the bottom there are the spheres of the sky and the earth. 3 charges represent, according to the poem, the 3 principles, tria prima, of the alchemical theory of Paracelsus: eagle, Mercury, spirit; lion, sulfur, soul; and star, salt body. Finally, 2 Schwurhands accompany the picture, attesting its creator's veracity. Is it a coincidence, or evidence that the tablets of fate never vanished? But still have some doubts about the tablets, then let's look at the modern-time Vatican that's still keeping some secrets. Rumors suggest that the Catholic Church has locked away countless artifacts that could change the course of history. Of the tablet's discovery. Vatican City, the smallest independent state in the world, stands as the spiritual and administrative heart of the Catholic Church. Within its borders lie architectural marvels like St. Peter's Basilica, the Sistine Chapel, and the Vatican Museums. But there's a more elusive aspect to this revered city-state, a legend that whispers of hidden treasures buried deep within its confines. These aren't just gold coins or gems, but a collection of ancient artifacts, manuscripts, and secrets that could change our understanding of history, religion, and humanity. The intrigue begins with the Vatican Library and its secret archives. Founded in the mid-15th century, the library houses tens of thousands of manuscripts, some dating back over 2,000 years. These texts are said to contain lost knowledge, forbidden gospels, and records of human history that contradict mainstream narratives. Some theorists believe that these archives hold maps leading to ancient treasures, relics from early Christianity, and even evidence of extraterrestrial life. The mystery of Vatican City's hidden treasure can be divided into three main categories: spiritual artifacts, historical documents, and material wealth. Among the legends is the belief that the Vatican possesses items of immense spiritual significance. These might include the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or relics of saints whose powers could inspire faith or fear. Some claim that the spear believed to have pierced Jesus Christ's side, known as the Holy Lance, is secretly housed in the Vatican's vaults. The Vatican's secret archives are said to contain texts that challenge conventional history. From the true story of the Knights Templar to hidden teachings of Jesus Christ, these documents could rewrite entire chapters of humanity's past. Some even speculate that the archives include letters between early popes and figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, or even rulers of ancient civilizations. As a repository of religious offerings and conquests, the Vatican is rumored to have hoards of gold, jewels, and artifacts acquired over centuries. During the Crusades, for instance, treasures from Jerusalem and Constantinople may have been brought to the Vatican for safekeeping. Some believe these treasures are hidden in underground catacombs or secret chambers. Numerous stories add to the allure of the Vatican's hidden treasures. One legend speaks of a secret chamber beneath St. Peter's Basilica, said to contain treasures looted from Jerusalem's Second Temple during the Roman conquest in 70 CE. This chamber, known as the Treasure of the Temple, is believed to hold the menorah, sacred vessels, and scrolls of immense religious value. Another theory involves the lost documents of the Knights Templar. The Templars, a medieval Christian military order, were known for their wealth and alleged discovery of hidden knowledge during their time in Jerusalem. When the order was disbanded in the 14th century, some believe that the Vatican acquired their treasures and secrets. The Vatican's secrecy only fuels speculation about its hidden treasures. Access to the secret archives is highly restricted, granted only to qualified researchers and clergy, and even then, limited to specific documents. The catacombs beneath Vatican City remain largely unexplored by outsiders, leaving their contents a mystery. This secrecy isn't without reason. The Vatican sees itself as the custodian of faith, charged with protecting artifacts and knowledge that could destabilize religious or political systems if mishandled. Critics, however, argue that this secrecy prevents humanity from understanding its true history and heritage. Could the real tablets of fate be among them, kept away from the public to prevent an uprising? The destruction of knowledge. A pattern of control. Every time humanity gets too close to the truth, something catastrophic happens. One of the most devastating events in history was the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Buildings don't just vanish, do they? This story is about how a beacon of ancient culture, knowledge, and growth was seemingly destroyed. But how and when it happened remains a mystery. The Library of Alexandria. Established during the reign of Ptolemy II in 285 to 246 BC, the Library of Alexandria held countless ancient documents highlighting the progressive intellect of humans. Historians have estimated that the Library of Alexandria held over 500,000 documents from Assyria, Greece, Persia, Egypt, India, and many other nations. This library was a place where wisdom grew and culture thrived. Set in Alexandria, The Great Library contributed to the intellectual and cultural greatness of the ancient city. With its many documents, the Great Library's large inventory needed expansion. The Great Library was part of a research institute known as the Museum. The museum was a place of study that included lecture areas, gardens, a zoo, and shrines. Despite how big this library seems, it was tragically destroyed. Even today, the cause and reason for its destruction remain a mystery, as historical events disturb the set time and cause of destruction, making it as if a gust of wind took it along. Julius Caesar didn't intentionally burn down the Library of Alexandria, but it was during his military campaign in 48 BC that a fire broke out in the city of Alexandria, which is believed to have damaged the library. The origin of this fire was when Cleopatra cried out for his help in obtaining the throne. A great battle erupted during the struggle for the throne, causing the library to suffer injury as he ordered an Egyptian fleet to be burned. To avoid being cut off by the Egyptian fleet, Caesar set fire to the ships in the harbor, which then spread to the city. The wild part is nobody knows how much damage the fire truly caused. Another person blamed for the fire was none other than Theophilus, a ruler of Alexandria. He's been accused of destroying significant cultural monuments in the city, including the Temple of Serapis, the daughter library that contains part of the Library of Alexandria. Starting Christian protest against pagan temples, he weaponized Christianity, which caused the fire to be set to pagan elements throughout the city. While this event did not directly destroy the library itself, the loss of the temple contributed to the loss of the library. These violent fires left no trace behind. No significant texts or documents were found after the library's destruction. The library's holdings likely included many unique artifacts, but over time, the various incidents leading to its end resulted in a near-total loss of everything. Some may have been found in different locations or were copied elsewhere, but the original documents of the library were truly lost. The final blow came in 640 CE, when Alexandria came under Muslim rule. The Muslim ruler, Caliph Omar, asserted that the library's contents would either contradict the Quran, in which case they are heresy, or they will agree with it, so they are superfluous. The contents of the library were then supposedly used as tinder for the city's bathhouses. Even then, it is said that it took 6 months for all the materials to burn. As we can see, the greatest collection of human knowledge was mysteriously burned. What were they trying to erase? Even more scary can be the fact that dozens of sacred texts were deliberately removed from religious canon. While the Library of Alexandria is a symbol of cultural devastation, missing books of the Bible represent another type of absence, one that stirs both scholarly curiosity and public intrigue. These are the books that were once considered sacred, or at least important enough to be mentioned by ancient authors. But, over time, they disappeared, leaving only tantalizing hints in other writings or whispers in historical records. What makes these lost books particularly compelling is the mystery they embody. Now it's time for you, with our help, to deal into those truly lost books, referenced by early Christian writers, yet never recovered. It's important to mention that while these lost books of the Bible could have potentially been included in the sacred scripture of Christianity, that outcome was by no means inevitable. Had history taken a different turn, some of these lost writings might have found a place within the pages of the Bible we know today. Yet the reality is that they did not. Their absence speaks to the many different paths that history could have taken, and how the Bible, as we know it, could have been different. There really is a letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians before the one we know as 1 Corinthians in the New Testament. This earlier letter, often referred to as the real 1 Corinthians, is lost to history, mentioned only in passing by Paul himself, 1 Corinthians 5:9. While we may never know the full content of this letter, the context in which Paul refers to it gives us some intriguing clues. Paul mentions this lost letter within a discussion of a serious issue plaguing the Corinthian church, sexual immorality. Specifically, he uses the Greek term porneia, which broadly refers to various forms of sexual misconduct. In the particular case, he highlights, Paul is addressing a scandal involving a man living with his father's wife, an act considered shocking even by the standards of the broader Greco-Roman world. Given this context, we can hypothesize that Paul's lost letter likely addressed similar issues of moral and communal discipline. It's possible that he warned the Corinthians about the dangers of allowing such behavior to go unchecked. Moreover, Paul may have urged them to distance themselves from the immoral practices prevalent, stressing that their witness as Christians depended on living lives that reflected their faith. Although the real 1 Corinthians hasn't survived, its absence leaves us with questions about what Paul might have written in his early correspondence with the Corinthians. This letter, as one of the lost books of the Bible, is a reminder of the complex and often messy realities of the early Christian communities. The New Testament Epistle to the Colossians mentions a letter that Paul supposedly wrote to the church in Laodicea, a city in Asia Minor. Unfortunately, like many other early Christian writings, this text hasn't survived the ravages of time. To make matters even murkier, scholars continue to debate whether Paul actually wrote Colossians, which casts some doubt on the accuracy of this reference. So, was there really a letter to the Laodiceans, or is this just another biblical mystery? The answer, as usual, isn't straightforward. Adding another layer to the intrigue, the Muratorian fragment, the oldest surviving list of canonical books from the late 2nd century, does mention an epistle to the Laodiceans. However, it doesn't do so kindly. Instead, it warns readers that this letter is a Marcionite forgery, a counterfeit text associated with the teachings of Marcion. But if that wasn't complicated enough, there's yet another letter to the Laodiceans that has survived, this time in several Latin manuscripts. This version, however, lacks any of the distinctive features of Marcion's theology, leaving scholars doubting it's the same text mentioned in the Muratorian fragment. One thing is clear, though. Neither of these letters was written by the Apostle Paul. In other words, both are likely later forgeries, an all-too-common phenomenon in the early Christian world, as Bart D. Ehrman discusses extensively in his book Forgery and Counterforgery. Paul's earlier letter to the Ephesians, missing book or fiction. In Ephesians 3:1-4, we find a curious reference that suggests the existence of an earlier letter from Paul to the Ephesians. The passage reads, "For this reason I, Paul, the prisoner of Christ Jesus for the sake of you Gentiles, surely you have heard about the administration of God's grace that was given to me for you, that is, the mystery made known to me by revelation, as I have already written briefly. In reading this, then, you will be able to understand my insight into the mystery of Christ." This intriguing mention of a prior communication has led some to wonder if Paul wrote another letter to the Ephesians that has since been lost to history. However, much of this speculation hinges on whether Paul actually penned Ephesians in the first place. Many scholars question Paul's authorship of Ephesians due to differences in writing style, vocabulary, and theology compared to his undisputed letters, such as Romans and Galatians. One potential indicator that Ephesians might be a later forgery is the extent to which the author goes to persuade readers that he is, indeed, the Apostle Paul. As Bart D. Ehrman notes in Forgery and Counterforgery, at the same time, one of the other striking features of the book is the lengths to which the author goes in order to make the letter sound like Paul's, in fact, to insist to his readers that he really is Paul. The structure of the letter is, for the most part, Pauline, with the one key exception mentioned above, and it uses dozens of Pauline-sounding words, phrases, and ideas. Apart from that, the author makes an inordinate number of self-references. Now let's shift our focus back to the Old Testament period, where we encounter another intriguing yet elusive text, the Book of the Wars of the Lord. This mysterious work is mentioned briefly in the Bible, specifically in Numbers 21:14. where it's cited as a source for a poetic account of Israel's journey through the wilderness. What we can infer from its title is that this work probably chronicled battles Israelites fought in their early history. In his commentary on Numbers, John Sturdy explains, "It was no doubt a collection of songs celebrating the victories of Israel over its enemies. We know of a similar book called the Book of Jashar, which recorded David's lament for Saul and Jonathan. Unfortunately, like many other ancient writings, this book has been lost to history, which leaves us with only enticing hints of what it might have contained. As one of the missing books of the Bible, its absence underscores the gaps in our understanding of Israel's early experiences and how they interpreted their relationship with God through the lens of warfare." Continuing our journey through the Old Testament period, we come across another intriguing yet vanished text, the Acts of Solomon. This work is mentioned briefly in 1 Kings 11:41, which states, "As for the other events of Solomon's reign, all he did and the wisdom he displayed, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon?" What we can surmise from the title is that the Acts of Solomon likely detailed the reign of King Solomon, one of Israel's most renowned monarchs. This text may have chronicled his political achievements, such as the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, or other feats that we aren't aware of at all. The Book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel and Judah, a lost record of two kingdoms. Another intriguing but missing book of the Bible. It's mentioned throughout the Old Testament books of Kings and Chronicles as a source for additional details on the reigns of Israel's and Judah's monarchs. For example, 1 Kings 14:19 states, "As for the other events of Jeroboam's reign, how he warred and how he ruled, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel?" Given its title and the context in which it's cited, the Book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel and Judah likely served as an official record of the deeds, policies, and significant events during the reigns of various kings in the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, 10th to 6th centuries. The Gospel of Matthias, a lost account from a lesser-known apostle. We are now turning again to the New Testament period to wrap up our exploration into the missing books of the Bible. One of the more enigmatic texts from this era is the Gospel of Matthias. Mentioned by early church authors, this gospel is associated with Matthias, the apostle chosen to replace Judas Iscariot after he betrayed Jesus. What can we infer about the Gospel of Matthias? Early church fathers such as Origen and Eusebius mentioned this text, indicating that it was known in some early Christian communities. Clement of Alexandria even quotes a verse from it, emphasizing the importance of both faith and knowledge. However, like many other non-canonical Gospels, it may have offered a perspective on Jesus' teachings or events from his life that differed from the accounts we have in the canonical Gospels. However, if its content had been less controversial and early Christian history had taken a different course, it might have been read during church services even today. Yet, as with so many other lost books of the Bible, we are left with only speculation, as this gospel ultimately faded into obscurity. Could they have contained clues to the tablet's existence? Now that you know the truth, what can you do? Question everything, don't accept history at face value. Dig deeper. The truth is always buried beneath lies. Research the forbidden study, ancient Mesopotamian tablets, hidden religious texts, and suppressed discoveries. Watch the patterns. Who is shaping global events? Who benefits from keeping you ignorant? Spread this knowledge. The more people wake up, the weaker the elite's control becomes. The tablets of fate. Are they still out there? Or worse, are they being used against us right now? Is everything we know, our past, our present, our future, just a scripted illusion? If you've made it this far, you are among the few who are truly awake. But the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Like, share, and comment below. Let's expose the truth. Stay vigilant, stay questioning, and most importantly, stay free.